Pendant toutes ces années d'apartheid, les Sud-Africains ont trouvé dans la culture le souffle de liberté qui manquait partout ailleurs. Les musiques de Johnny Clegg, Stimela, Lucky Dubé et tant d'autres ont alimenté de leurs accords le fameux Sound of Liberation, l'énergie de tout un peuple rejetant le pouvoir raciste et répressif blanc de Pretoria. Lorsque Mandela a été enfin libéré le 11 février 1990, tous croyaient pouvoir célébrer la fin de l'apartheid. Les lois du racisme au quotidien ont été abrogées, mais l'apartheid régit encore les pouvoirs politiques et économiques. Et si le dialogue existe, tout reste à construire. Aujourd'hui, les chants de libération appellent le futur de l'Afrique du Sud dans un présent troublé par les violences qui ensanglantent le pays.
Trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, oh, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue.
Well, in our struggle, the songs and the music of resistance were very important in mobilizing opinion. And also the songs that were written about Mandela were not about an individual only, however much the grandeur of a man was celebrated. When we were talking about Mandela, when he came out, remember, on February 11, 1990, it was the liberation of the people.
To silence him, oh, to shut him down, oh, just to shut him down. They have called him a terrorist. Oh, yes, they call him all names.
Dans la foulée de la libération de Mandela, Johannesburg célèbre le retour des géants du Township Jive tels que Masekela, Makeba, Dollar Brand devenu Abdullah Ibrahim, Kaifus et les Tambulu. Après 30 ans d'exil, les pères fondateurs du jazz du ghetto retrouvent enfin la terre de leurs racines.
It's a homecoming, and it's also showing the young generations that was the music, that's the roots. That's or an important aspect of the roots. But whether it is still a major force and part of the major new vital music trends in the country, clearly it isn't. This situation has often generated tension between the exiles and the new young musicians in a certain extent, because the young people in South Africa have not been exposed to it, and when the greats come back here and they present themselves as basically the founding fathers of the black urban music scene. And in doing that, some of the young musicians say, well, yeah, but that was then. This is now, and we've got a new music, and we don't want to go back. There's some nice stuff that you're doing which we want to use. There's some stuff some nice stuff that you're playing, which is great, but we're going to use that in a different way.
I went to do a shop for honor. Jack couldn't tell her in my shop for honor. Him I went to do a shop for honor. Jack couldn't tell her in my shop for honor. Him I wanted on the left hand, left the one, left the honor, left the shoes man.
Le futur de l'Afrique du Sud passe par l'énergie des Prophets of the City, qui électrochoquent leurs racines africaines pour crier la misère des bidonvilles. Le rap de Prophet of the City, c'est la main tendue aux frères des ghettos noirs Yankees, comme une version 100% afro d'Arrested Development.
first of all, the thing that makes our band different from American bands is, first of all, it's the accent, you know, and the things that we speak about on the records. We speak about all our local topics and everything. And also the samples that we use in our music is all straight up African samples. And on a new project, The Age of Truth, we'll have the guys rapping in Xhosa, Zulu, you know, all the traditional African languages. While a lot of bands overseas are actually trying to get close to the African sound, Prophet of the City will be dropping the real thing on y'all.
Everybody shout, yeah! Listen to the people out there. So don't move, cause we're about to bust the funky rhyme for those who are down with us. And we must dedicate this song to the people that appreciate this crew and respect what we do and also what we're trying to get through. But all I have to say is it too, homeboy.
Two rules. Number one, no rules. Number two, no formula.
Yeah.
We don't work by rules or formula. If something feels good, even if the bass line is out and it doesn't sit with the guitar musically, but the vibe is there, that's the way we go about. The way we go to work on the samplers is just from what's happening on hip-hop records. You know, we had no idea about the reverberation and compression and, you know, all this EQing and all that bull. You know, we just felt, okay, this is the way we see it. This is the way we interpret it as from listening, let's say, to a Public Enemy record or whatever. Let's do this.
Yeah, the P.O. to the C right here on Mega Mix. Here comes the beat. Hold it down.
Check it out, I'm down with a new jack swing, the black thing, the rap thing. Oh yes, I do that thing, I go buck wild. I told her Ishma got enough style, enough rap, enough respect, enough style.
I got something on my mind, something on my mind. Yo, whip it up with a fucking rhyme.
Jump around and move your body. Put up your hands for the reggae party. Jump around and don't karate. Jump around, twist like spaghetti, me say me bad. Yes, me got a lyrical tongue, me say me mad. Jump around and have some fun, me say me mad. Yes, me and me chop me candle, me say me mad. Yes, me shine like the sun. Me junior Dre from the POC. I'm a daddy, yes, you know me. Me rock a dancehall in the party. A trail a little girls, me love them badly. Why?
I got something on my mind, something on my mind. Yo, kick it one time, kick it one time. I got something on my mind, something on my mind. Yo, bump it up with the funky rhyme. No, I kick it, acapella, like Mandela. Stay on track, like Steve Mella. Then elevate from the cellar to the top like Cinderella. Boom!
Tous les bohères ne sont pas des adeptes de l'apartheid. Avec des rebelles rock tels que Johannes Kerkorel et des rêveurs folkeux comme Anton Roussen, on découvre qu'on peut aussi dire je t'aime en afrikaans.
It's alternative Afrikaans music. It's a new thing. You must be able to hear that. I mean, you can't just ban it from campus because it's maybe some swear words in it or it's against the government or whatever.
Laat die nacht die honden blaf.
At the time I was looking for a character, a name of a character that would be somebody who's typically Afrikaans, the whole stereotype actually. And this name captured it for me fully. Because, not only because of the name Johannes, which is a typical Afrikaans name, or a Dutch name really, and then I added the kerkorrel bit, which means church organ, and sort of that's just a little bit making fun of Calvinism, which is the main thing in this country. Yeah, I suppose there are incredible similarities with Eastern European countries, communist countries. It was the same kind of repression here than there, but from the other side. I mean, in this country, communism was an incredible specter that was hanging over us all these years and pushed down our throats by the state. We were always told that communism is the devil, and it's it's like the whole trip. And people were, that motivated everything. It motivated the war, and there was a war. I mean, there was a war going on in Angola, which basically affected young white people. So, because they were the ones who had to go and fight this war. And the war came because of the policy of apartheid. And that was something that was the previous generation created that situation, and we had to go out and fight. There was no neutral ground on which to meet, actually. And so I believe in the medium of culture and music, because possibly there we can meet each other and create something new here. Yeah, I suppose there are incredible similarities with Eastern European countries, communist countries. I mean, we could vote, but we didn't really have much of a choice of what to vote for. And most of the people in this country could never vote. And it's created an incredible imbalance. And these things are changing, and hopefully they'll change finally when everybody's got a right and a vote.
Daar was rijkdom in die maan van ons moeder Afrika. Diamante en ook steenkool, God het om het hart. En die mensen word die slawe hier, van die mensen word betaald om te dondel in die aarde, elke greintjie uit te haal. Allah, Allah, ewige ons Afrika. Allah, Allah, ewige ons Afrika. Allah, Allah, ewige ons Afrika.
Réunis par la fraternité de la langue afrikaans, l'ex-journaliste et Bob Dylan afrikaner Anton Rosen a poussé son folk jusqu'au reggae du Rasta Afrika, Lucky Dubé.
Hoe lang gaan die vraag, waar ons vraag nog gevra word? Hoe lang voor die vraag met die antwoord stil gemaakt wordt? Wie is allemaal ons, wat saamrij op die wagen?
I was brought up in that system. When I was little, I also spoke of, these words like kafir, or making distinguishing between colours and creed and etc. But along the line, because I'm a musician, and a Griqua guy taught me to play guitar, and to milk cows, and to smoke cigarettes, and that point of view from a musician, you see that there's no difference here.
Oh, moenie omkyk nie, moenie terugkyk nie, moenie bang wees nie, daar's nie soutpilare nie. Dis net die wind, die wind, die wind my kind, die winde van verandering.
It is a beautiful language. It's related to the European languages, to Belgium and a bit of German and that. But a language born from, the only Western language born out of Africa. It's an African language. And it dances on the tongue, it speaks well. And there's a lot of symbolism in the language. It's very expressive, it's guttural at times. You can swear very well in the language, but you can make love in the language and you can dance with it.
Because I started speaking Afrikaans at a very early stage, you know, so I could just speak Afrikaans very fluently, actually Afrikaans and English. because I started talking Afrikaans from a very early stage, because I started working in the gardens for the white people when I was still in Ermelo. As early as 9, 10 years, I was just doing garden for the people in Ermelo. So Afrikaans was just, you know, the principal language.
Lucky said, yes, let's do it. And we went into the studio and we did 2 takes, and that was it, end of the story. And we had 2 producers. It was a wonderful moment because of this tension thing of, is he going to say yes, or is it going to work, etc. There were all sorts of managers and people and producers and other people waiting to come and do their guest artist slot. So we ended up with an audience in the studio. And I'm rather like Jimi Hendrix with vocals. It's a very, very private thing.
It's a long way to Paradise Road and the city of gold.
For a man who's paid his dues with dancing shoes.
How when a man has nothing, he's got nothing to lose.
But for the heart of the dream and that dream of the heart.
Look at him dancing, because that's how Betty is dancing. Because that's how Betty is dancing. Because that's how Betty is dancing the night away. Dancing is running away. Dancing is dreams away. Dancing is love away.
I have picked up shock. I have picked up a bit of alienation. I have picked up a lot of approval. And this goes both sides, and Lucky will, I think, tell you the same thing. That from his side as well here, I'm sure he's been asked, why are you singing with a whitey? What's happened to the pure black consciousness and all that? And as he has said on numerous occasions, we are just musicians. Musicians don't see color with its notes. The notes are colorless. But the audience is, from the beginning, I've had these political things, but I wasn't pushing it all out politically. 10 years ago, it would have been suicide. I wouldn't have had a career, not in Afrikaans.
Is Lucky's real name? When does his next album come?
This is Casey Moore, the Lucky Dube Media Conference.
Hey, why do they call him Black?
Hey, man, I don't know. Maybe it was when I
Going overseas.
Lucky, let's go.
Lucky, when's your next concert?
Any more tours this year?
Lucky, who's your favorite artist?
All right. Who's first?
You left for the city many years ago. You promised to come back and take care of us. Many years have gone by now. Still no sign of you. Take you. Mother died of heart attack many years ago. When she heard that you were married again. Now I'm the only one left in the family. Wherever you are, remember me. Whatever you do, I love you. Wherever you are, remember me. Whatever you do, I love you. Wherever you are, remember me. Whatever you do, I love you.
Ex-punk de l'utopie, Warid, le leader des Kalahari Surfeurs, a troqué son rock pour inventer un toast urbain en duo avec Lesego, le poète de Soweto.
And very plain. Alright, you want to see it? Alright, very simple, goes like this. Very catchy also.
Cause the SAP are here to see that we all enjoy democracy. The SAP are here to see that we all enjoy democracy. I wanna hear you feel there to see that we all enjoy democracy. I wanna hear you feel there to see that we all enjoy democracy. The SAP are here to see that we all enjoy democracy. The SAP are here to see that we all enjoy democracy. The SAP are here to see that we all enjoy democracy.
Neither of us are popular. I've never made music that's been popular. Not because I've deliberately tried to make music that's unpopular, but just because in our country we've been living through years of cultural boycott and people haven't grown, their imaginations haven't grown. I've always existed in the avant-garde. I worked in Europe. Lesego the same. There's no way that any of his words are ever going to make it onto the radio. So we exist on the edge, the cultural edge, and inevitably we'd be drawn together just at some stage, because there can only be one of him in this country, and there can only be one of me, and that's it. Eventually you find each other.
I don't know if I should say anything about life in Soweto per se. But I come from a generally illiterate society and very violent and I suppose it being poverty-stricken and it being a place of disease basically, because once you push people into a small spot of space where they have to coexist, then things are bound to get incredibly violent. Things are bound to explode at some stage, because those people were not placed there by choice or out of choice or something. They were pushed into that place due to the nationalist parties' apartheid policies.
In headbands, lead hands, the red of murder. Still the words of thunder and a roll when they fall into days. So the pop of a necklace, eyeball eaten. I saw waves of reform tumbling in a storm from clouds of chloroform. The weight is the last like it was the first. Beginning was the weight that was never hid. For the weight was God and God was dead. In a 6 and a 9, Jesus bled wine, made vampires of holy believers. Still the preachers say there's a heaven up above, coming down your way with biblical love. Love as sweet as shit that stalks and stings up the street from the bowels of a Christian law. The present is a time of war, where measuring the time of the tides turning, gauging the gate of a heart's yearning, weighing the wind of the winds flapping. The shattering song is breaking glass in the gloom of the singing of the morning in the evening light.
Étendard du rock makanga militant, Johnny Clegg a vécu chez lui en Afrique extrême tous les bouleversements qui secouent son pays. La douleur mais aussi l'espoir alimentent les nouvelles fusions de Hit, Dust and Dreams, son premier album dans une Afrique du Sud presque démocratique.
What happened to the diamonds in your eyes? To the hunger for the day's chase?
In this country, obviously, culture has been one of the most important, if not the most important, political weapons. And to try and demystify culture, try to make culture accessible, try to say, that is not foreign, that is African, and you were born here, and you have the right to claim it. You have the right to say, that's beautiful, I want to be part of that. Explore it, make it, you know, make it human to yourself. All of these things, you know, I still regard as part of my role, but obviously it doesn't have the same political implications that it had before 1990. Now it's just a normal activity. It's an activity which actually has more implications, in a sense, internationally, because of all the other ethnic complications that are happening around the world. the idea of mixing languages is anathema to, say, a Yugoslav or to a Pole. Whereas in South Africa, it's actually, we are a little bit more advanced than that. We are actually now experimenting with these ideas.
Picture the end of a cycle. Here's the fire from heaven. There's the tide planet closing down. No more news at 11. Somewhere the last of a species has died. Somewhere a child is born. When I hold you, I tremble inside. Can we ride out the storm? Are you tough enough? Can you take the pain? Are you tough enough? Walk in a burning rain. Are you tough enough? Can you take the weight? Are you tough enough, baby? Just say. Into the heart of the human dream. Into a strange new world. Remember me under the tree of man, where we first heard your words. I'm gonna make it through, I can feel it. I'm gonna make it through, I can feel it. I'm gonna make it through, I can feel it. I'm gonna make it through, I can feel it. Oh, I can feel it. You know I can feel it. Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
You'll find that in fact amongst the Zulu, you have a vast majority of Zulu people being ANC members. And that what's going on in Natal at the moment is a civil war between the Zulu. Those Zulu who support the ANC and those Zulu who support Inkatha. And that Inkatha has a very, very tough time in Natal. So that's the first problem. You'll find that in all the tribal groupings, so-called tribal groupings, you have ANC, you have PAC, you have AZAPO. The tribe itself is divided into different political groupings.
Awunani webakithi sihamba nomsindisi.
Wothina nawe sohamba nomsindisi. Wothina nawe sohamba nomsindisi. Wothina nawe thina sobabili sohamba nomsindisi. Wothina nawe sohamba nomsindisi. Wothina nawe sohamba nomsindisi. Wothina nawe thina sobabili sohamba nomsindisi.
Dudu, our percussionist and dancer, who was shot on the 4th of May this year, also while I was recording the album, was a major blow to me and to the band, and brought home the viciousness of the economic situation in South Africa. He died in the context of a taxi war in the rural areas, and he was essentially a spectator.
Clear as the light of day. Osieza, Osieza, Sizofika webaba noma. Osieza, Osieza, siyabuya lomhlaba, siyawela lapesheya, kulezo ntaba zemnyama.
Song dedicated to Dudu. He's made his crossing, he's crossed over. And South Africa is making its crossing. And he crossed inside the big crossing. He made his small crossing because of the big crossing. And I look at that metaphor and I realize that I have a few years left as a dancer to dance with passion and to dance with the truth and to dance with authenticity before I start to dance like a middle-aged man, which means I don't kick up my leg too high, I don't stamp the ground, and it's more symbolic, and everybody is very polite, and you know, in my community, and say, yes, you know, he used to be a good dancer. And I realize that that's coming in the next 5 years or so, and I will have to make a crossing as well. And I was thinking, shall I make it now? Or shall I make it in 5 years' time? I'm still a competent dancer. I'm still in full control. My knees are still strong. You know, my pelvis still, you know, can move. But in 5 years' time, maybe it's not going to be like that. Shall I rather start preparing myself in a new direction? And this album, in a sense, is an experiment in that new direction, trying to find a new way to express myself. This is where we took the cover of the first album of Johnny Clegg and Savuka, the Third World Child one. It's a medicine shop, and we were standing in the front here, sitting and kneeling in the front. See, this is illegal trade in animal skins. These skins are used for traditional wear. There are a few other places which we'll have a look at. Uyaqasha futhi. Awu.
Uphuma TV. Kodwa lesizulu siyangena. Sidlala nje ngokuyirobha.
Uyirobha. Okay, lapha ngizwa.
But ngidlala sona lesi nawe ukwazi ukusidlala. Intamba siphendulwanga.
Oh.
Ngizidlala nje isizulu. No, with more.
Johnny avec sa guitare et ses mots, Nadine Gordimer, prix Nobel de littérature avec ses livres, ont mené le même combat contre l'apartheid. Rencontre entre tireurs d'élite de l'arme de l'intelligence.
That music has been particularly important as a form of resistance in this country. Would you agree?
Yes, but also the thing that has never really been looked at properly is the fact that it's never really, it's often not been in a shape that's recognizable.
How do you mean?
In the sense that it's often not been strident and overtly political. You know, you have a, if you look at, say, the Mbaqanga traditional township music, which has often been dismissed by more serious politically orientated commentators as being sort of, you know, nice time dance music and not really having any real, you know, benefit to the struggle. I've often had a lot of arguments with him because I feel that this music, and like all music of all ghettos, whether it's the favelas in Brazil or Jamaica, wherever it is, it's a music which says to you, step inside me and I will make you whole again. In a dehumanizing situation, I will make you human. I will give you something. And so you get a guy or a person who wakes up at 4 in the morning in Soweto, goes to work on a segregated train and goes into a segregated entrance, and you know, it goes through that whole experience for 5 days a week and comes back again at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. And on Saturday there's a show. Now the last thing he wants is for somebody to get up and tell him what he's just experienced over the past 5 days and to explain to him that he's suffering, because he knows he's suffering.
Absolutely.
He wants somebody to make him whole again. He wants somebody to say, I can put a smile on your face. Traditional music is cyclical. Western music tends to be linear. And the cyclical thing is a kind of a womb. Because when you step into that music, it says to you, the beginning is the end. You start here and you'll always come back to the beginning. And that's safe. It's something which I find hard to explain sometimes, but when you get into the same repetitive thing, it gives you a sense of, hey, I can go on. I can keep moving. And if I felt paralyzed before and I felt down before, this cycle, it's just, and I know where it's going to go. I can predict it.
It's interesting, while you're saying this now, cycle, go on walking, I think that it very early on was a kind of antidote to industrial alienation.
Yes.
Because living in a mining town, as I did, mining community, you used to see something and hear something that I really miss now that you don't hear and see anymore. And that is that when people walked, blacks walked, mine workers,
that's right,
you had your guitar.
Yes.
And it was what I called always in my mind, even as a child, walking music.
That's right.
And it was, it had something to do not just with your steps, but with the rhythm of your blood, with your heart beating. And it really was an antidote to that very hard work that you did underground. And let's talk about the future in terms of our own country, because that's what really matters to us. The history that would be read here, that would be absorbed here about us and about our past. It's a country with a very low rate of literacy.
Yes.
There are nearly 60% of people who are not literate.
Yes.
And how many of the other percentage are truly literate? So that literature has potentially a much smaller audience. It reaches fewer people. So I think that even if the SABC was not playing work that would really stimulate people, more people listen to cassettes, more people buy records.
It's more of a popular culture.
And there's another aspect to it that we haven't touched on. I think something was more important 10 years ago or 5 years ago than it is now. The only place where people met in mutual enjoyment openly was at huge pop concerts. There you got young whites who came from very racist backgrounds and who in their more formal part of life continued to be racist. But somehow they all sat together, drank beer together, and listened to music together and applauded like mad and worshipped the same idols.
Right.
It was a unifying factor in a way that didn't exist on any other level.
That's the sun beyond the tides of war and peace. To put silence, sleep like rhymes to fly through. I want a heartbreak loose the wind. The boy you want to go. I want a heartbreak loose the wind. The boy you want to go. A heartbreak loose the wind. The boy you want to go. A heartbreak loose the wind. The boy you want to go. Take my heart away. 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 You take my heart away. Take my heart away. Take my heart. You take my heart away. Take my heart away. To see your eyes shine like two desert stars. See your life burning with the mission. To break the empty circle of living and dying. To leave a child with a vision. I want a heartbreak loose the wind. The boy you want to buy. I want a heartbreak loose the wind. The boy you want to buy. No heartbreak loose the wind. The boy you want to buy. I want a heartbreak loose the wind. The boy you want to buy. Take my heart away. Take my heart away. Take my heart away. Take my heart away. Take my heart. You take my heart away. Take my heart. You take my heart away. Take my heart away. Sing me the songs that won the battle. Sing me the first and the last man's glory. Sing me the songs that taste of freedom. Thread me through